But join us on the program right now, John Hohenwarter, NRA-ILA's New Hampshire State Liaison. John, good evening to you, sir.
Cam, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Man, oh man, the Live Free or Die state is living up to its name these days. You got a new legislative session after an historic election night in New Hampshire, and I got to tell you, Second Amendment front and center in the early days of the legislative session in New Hampshire.
Isn't that something? I heard you talking some of the numbers between last session and this session as far as the parties go. And, you know, looking at the House last session, we went as far as Republican control from 174 to 297.
Whoa.
Which is amazing. Of course, you know, we have good Democrats, and you know, again, we are a bipartisan organization.
Sure.
The shift up there was incredible, and even you know, some of the Democrats that won in their districts, I'm confident that they're going to be pro-gun as well. So, no, fast and furious start. Speaker O'Brien, the Senate President Bragdon, they are, you know, committed to protecting the Second Amendment up there. And the first thing, what did they do right out of the box? They ended up rescinding the regulations that went into effect last year.
Yeah, there were two regulations that went into effect. One was passed by this legislative committee that, from what I understand, John, normally they don't handle issues like gun bans, but they took it upon themselves last year to ban guns in the Capitol complex. There was another restriction on banning firearms specifically within the House chamber and the gallery. Both of those have now been dealt with again very early on, which makes me wonder, John, this must have been a big issue in the last elections. And I'm wondering if there were not a lot of New Hampshire voters who saw what happened in the last session, again, as this sort of out-of-touch mentality of we don't trust the people who have voted for us.
Well, I think there was a lot of that. I mean, that goes back to when the Castle Doctrine proposal was originally vetoed, and that actually was going on, 3 years ago. And when, you're right, when this committee ended up changing the regulation dealing with carrying firearms in the state complex, that really, I think, put some people over the edge. And you're right, we talked about it last year. It was a move or a maneuver done very quietly, and they rammed it down everybody's throat. You know, what happened this time was not done quietly. Everybody knew it was coming. And again, they changed those regs. Now, today, they went even further today, and they voted for House rule change today, which would allow members of the House to actually carry a firearm, a concealed firearm, onto the House floor. Now, I had heard that this has not been a rule of the House since 1985, but then I heard later on this afternoon that, no, it went back to 1971. So it's either between 25 and 40 years that, you know, members of the legislature, you know, couldn't carry a gun on that, you know, the floor of the House. So that has changed. And during the debate today, Cam, there was also a charge led by the Democrats to stop individuals from carrying concealed firearms in the gallery, but that ended up failing, I think, by, I don't know, 270 to 90, something like that. So that actually went down by a pretty fair number as well.
Wow. That's fantastic. And you know, I understand every vote is different and every issue is different. You're going to have the potential for people, you know, saying yes or no, depending on what we're talking about. But when you look at the Castle Doctrine legislation, I've seen some news stories indicating that this is going to be brought back this year, and that there are high hopes that this could actually pass out of the legislature with a veto-proof majority.
Oh, I think it will. Again, some of these folks that obviously are untested, but I'm fairly confident that you're going to see a veto-proof margin, not only in the House, but in the Senate as well. You have to keep in mind that the numbers in the Senate changed dramatically.
14-10 to 19-5.
That's pretty dramatic.
It really is. And when you consider that New Hampshire has the largest state legislature of any of the states, To me, what that means is that your vote as a citizen counts more because your districts are smaller and fewer individuals are choosing your representatives, which really allows for these sweeping changes, I think, to be possible. But fact of the matter is, we don't see this every election in New Hampshire. It's not like every 2 years the House, whipsaws back and forth between, historically large numbers for Democrats and then historically large numbers for Republicans. This really was an historic election in New Hampshire.
Well, it surely was. Now, we in a few other states, there's been some similar results. As you know, Pennsylvania had a pretty big swing as well as Ohio, but nothing as dramatic as what took place up in New Hampshire. I mean, the people's voice apparently was heard loud and strong back in November, and I think you're going to see quite a few changes made up there, not only on our issue but on several issues. And as we said, I think there's a veto-proof margin there on a number of these issues. And Castle Doctrine is going to be one of them. I know there's been a number of firearm bills that have been introduced this session, and in fact, I'm still sifting through them. Which is, the funny thing is that these are good bills for the firearm owner, not like what we see in the neighboring state of Massachusetts, but they're reform bills to make it better for gun owners. And so we'll be sifting through those. I know that the Speaker of the House and the Senate President are going to prioritize some of this and decide, what are we going to handle first. But I do believe you're going to see Castle Doctrine be one of the first bills up on the agenda.
Well, that is very good news. So these New Hampshire residents should be contacting their representatives, their state senators. I guess once we get a bill number, at least that would. Can they hold off until we get a bill number, John, or should they go ahead?
Hold off. As you know, New Hampshire does move fast and furious. It's a part-time legislature, and we'll be having bill numbers here within the next week as they come out. So we'll be contacting our members as soon as we have some bill numbers. So at this point, it's never a bad idea just to call up your legislator and put a bug in his ear that this bill is going to be coming up, regardless of whether or not it's been assigned a number or not, because everybody's aware of the issue.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll have to sit back and wait and see what the governor is going to do and where law enforcement is going to, shake out on this. Because keep in mind, one of the reasons why, or the reason why the governor vetoed the bill was he was using law enforcement as a reason why, because they came out in opposition to the bill. So different game this year. Same idea, but different game. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. And to that opposition, because I see this in every state now where Castle Doctrine is introduced, the argument goes something like, well, if we pass this, then criminals are going to try to claim Castle Doctrine protection if we charge them with a crime. John, that's like saying we should get rid of self-defense laws because a criminal will try to claim self-defense.
It's crazy. Clearly, Castle Doctrine may not keep everybody out of the courtroom, but it's surely going to give you the tools to stay out of jail, or for the prosecutor to drop charges. So, it's a tool that the citizen needs, and the reason we need it is because we've been getting abused by the courts, by prosecutors, for defending yourself and your family. And Pennsylvania, moving back to Pennsylvania, this is going to be addressed hopefully early in the session here in Pennsylvania as well. As you know, we had a bill that went through both chambers with a large number of, bipartisan support, good numbers, almost veto-proof, and the governor vetoed the bill. So we'll be addressing this as well in Pennsylvania.
All right. It sounds like you are going to be a very, very busy man. I hope that you will find time for us in our radio program every now and then.
All right. Well, it's going to be a fun session.
All right, John. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, and we'll talk to you again very, very soon, I'm sure.